Hello and welcome to a video describing some of the key features of the latest release of the fvwm3 window manager, which is at version 1.0.5, and that was released on the 28th of September 2022, which at the day of this recording was only yesterday, so this is hopefully still fresh in my mind. So it's been over a year now since the last release, version 1.0.4, happened, and you may be wondering in that time what's changed, and you may even think that there have been a slew of new features and what have you. Well, the reality is that there's been a ton of bug fixing and stability improvements, but very little in the way of features. And I think that that's reflected in the fact that the maturity level of fvwm3 is such that it already does quite a bit and has done for many, many years. And so the need and thought behind new features isn't necessarily there. So it shouldn't surprise you necessarily, given that the majority of the changes that have happened are bug fixes, which aren't necessarily as exciting, but should still help improve the user experience nonetheless. And I've got a few things here that I'd like to talk through anyway with regards to this release. So in no particular order, the first one that's there is that the repeat command has been removed. Now, I don't think that the repeat command has been particularly well used. I haven't seen it in most people's configs that I do get to look at with regards to general help and support. And the reason it's been removed is due to a piece of work that Dominic Voigt and I did to improve the internal parser of fvwm3. Now, that parser is responsible for understanding the syntax for the configuration file, as well as any commands that get sent to it via fvwm console, for instance. And it's the oldest part of the window manager in many respects that has organically grown over the last sort of 20 years, to the point where working with it when you're adding new commands, for instance, can be problematic. And so when this was being rewritten behind the scenes, which nobody should really notice, the repeat command sort of stuck out like a sore thumb, because suddenly it didn't really fit in with some of the changes that we'd done. So we took the decision to remove it, and hopefully no one will notice. Now, if anyone does notice and really does want it back, the only thing I can suggest is either writing a shell script that echoes commands back to fvwm3, or you might get away with using the existing schedule command, although unlike the repeat command, which operates based on n instances, the schedule command operates based on a time interval, which means that they're not quite equivalent, but you might find that that does much the same thing. Okay, the other thing that we've done to help with discovering documentation is to try and split up the huge man page into smaller sections. So a little bit like what ZSH have done for years now, we have an aggregate man page with the rather catchy title of fvwm3 all, and that pulls together the man pages that we've split out. So if you still want the big man page to read, that's how you find it. If you happen to know where a particular area is that you're wanting to find information for, then you do have the option of jumping to the specific specific man pages here, if that's useful to you. And the reason we did that was because it helps us as maintainers when we're writing and changing documentation, but also hopefully for end users, it removes the sheer volume of information that you'd otherwise get from just having one man page. So hopefully that is going to be useful to some people. In terms of other improvements, this one is somewhat esoteric in the sense that I don't believe that eFence or dmalloc are supported anymore. But what they do or did is allowed programmers to profile their program by injecting hooks and therefore getting information back about memory usage and allocation and whether or not that memory is being freed, etc. Which in the good old days before the likes of Valgrind made perfect sense, but in this day and age, Valgrind has very much won, and from a feature set perspective, certainly does a lot more than eFence and dmalloc ever could. So that has been removed, and hopefully no one will actually notice. I suppose a small feature add is we now have a new variable, monitor.prev, which is the opposite to the existing variable monitor.current, in that it will tell me what the previous focused monitor happened to be. And one way of exercising that is actually via a new event hook called monitor.focus. I can probably demonstrate that. So if I first of all just turn on logging, which I have a event script here that will track the different monitor focus, and you can see in the log here as I move the cursor between monitors, it's printing what the current monitor is and what the previous one was. So if you look up here, this monitor now is HDMI 1, it currently has the focus, and the previous monitor that had the focus was this DP12. If I move my mouse across to that, the current monitor, as you can see there, is DP12, and the previous one was HDMI 1. And I suppose that this will be mostly useful for people that are trying to script certain things and sort of track where focus has come from, and that might be because you want to go back to a previous screen, or you might want to focus a particular window where having the previous monitor makes sense. I guess there's all sorts of use cases, but it's there if it's required, and it felt like it was going to be a useful thing. So another bug fix is window recaptures. So when multi-monitor support was introduced, window recapturing changed slightly, and ever since then it's been harder and harder to track down various problems when fvwm is restarted and windows are recaptured. So there are some instances when different windows on different pages would move to a different desk, or you might find that windows that were not iconified before restart suddenly start up iconified. I'm hoping that I fix that. I can't guarantee that I've found all of the edge cases, but I think I've cracked most of it. But do please let me know via the GitHub issue tracker if I've missed some, because I would be very interested to know. It's been a difficult problem to track down. And I've just mentioned the monitor focus, so really that completes the high level set of this release. The full details can be seen on the release page. There are a lot of bug fixes, and I didn't want to go over all of them because a lot of them are really internal and not particularly user focused, and therefore quite boring to talk about. So I hope I've captured the kind of key points here. The other thing I'd like to do is thank the 5 new contributors who sent through pull requests as part of this new release. It is very much welcomed, and I really do encourage and hope that other people do send through both bug reports and pull requests. It is largely just me who is maintaining this, and it's not a particular core focus of my time. I have many other projects that I like to do and work on. So any and all code changes and issues that get logged are helpful, because it does allow me to react to certain issues and bug fixes as and when they arise. So please do keep those coming through. It is greatly appreciated. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. I hope it was useful, and I'll catch you in the next video.